Hi everyone, my name is Norman. I run the blog nimbleneedles.com, and today I want to show you how to knit in the round on double pointed needles. I knit all my socks and most of my hats on DPNs. I know a lot of people are scared to tackle this technique, so in this video I'm going to take you by the hand and guide you through knitting in the round step by step. So let's get right into it. Obviously you will need double pointed needles to knit in the round on double pointed needles. They usually come in a set of 5 and we'll be using all 5 of them in this tutorial. For beginners, bamboo is probably best. Bamboo is cheap, light, very warm to the touch, and it has a nice friction that will prevent your stitches from falling off the needles. I personally use these Knitter's Pride Karbonz needles. For me, they're really a dream come true, and I own them in every imaginable size. They're almost impossible to break, so that's why I like them. I'll link you both in the description below. So once you got your double pointed needles, it's time to cast on stitches. I'm using the regular long tail cast on here because I feel it's perfect for knitting in the round. I'm going to link you my detailed tutorial up in here and in the description below. But if you don't like the long tail cast on for whatever reason, you can use whatever cast on technique you prefer. For this little project here, I'm casting on 33 stitches. That's one more stitch than I actually need because I need one stitch to join everything in the round. I usually cast on with 2 needles or 2 sizes bigger. Why? Well, that way you create a much stretchier edge, and that will make it easier to slip stitches to the other needles. You'll see why this is important in a second. And also, most patterns that are knit in the round, they start with some sort of ribbing around the cuff, and so stretchy cast on is actually what you need. So I cast on all my 33 stitches, and now it's time to distribute these stitches evenly to 4 needles. When you're knitting in the round, you always have 4 or sometimes 3 needles to hold the stitches and 1 working needle. So what you have to do is you just have to slip these stitches as if to purl onto the second needle. In this case, I'm slipping 8 stitches to this needle. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's important that you insert them as if to purl so you don't twist them. 1, 2, 3, 8. And then you pick up the next needle and slip another 8 stitches to the second needle. Try to distribute the stitches evenly. I mean, in theory, it doesn't really matter, but it makes things much easier. If you have a big repeat or something like that, I mean, you can also do 6 and 8 or 6 and 10. But if it gets too big of a difference, then you will lose a lot of mobility. So once you distributed all stitches to the 4 needles, it probably will look a bit like this. So what I do from here is I place the needles on the table in front of me. And now you have to make sure they are not twisted. Your cast on edge should form one continuous untwisted line. So if it's twisted like this, you have to untwist the needles. The little gap should point towards the top, and I usually slide the stitches to the middle of all 4 needles, so there's no risk of them falling off the needles. And once you're satisfied, this is very unstable, so be very careful, and this will probably take a bit of practice. But once you're satisfied, pick up the needles with both hands, and remember, we cast on one additional stitch, and on the last needle we actually have 9 stitches, and we're going to use this to join them around. So what I do is I slip the first stitch of the first needle onto the last needle, and then I pass the additional stitch over this first stitch a bit as if to bind off, and then I slip it back to the first needle and I tuck on these 2 tails here, and that way we join in the round, and this joining method is almost invisible, and from here you can start on knitting. Now that we join in the round, we can start knitting. What you have to do is you have to bring, this will be the first needle we are knitting, and you have to bring it to the front. So in case it is the tip is below this tip, you have to bring it to the top. And likewise, if it's like this, so the working needle is below the second needle, you have to bring it to the top so the needle rests on top of these 2 needles. And then you have to pick up the working yarn, make sure you don't pick up the tail, and pick up the 5th needle, and we can start knitting. If this is a bit loose again, you can tuck on it and it's joined securely again. So we start knitting, and for the first two stitches you have to keep a very high tension to avoid creating gaps, but it's just the regular knit stitch. The knit stitch or the purl stitch, they're knit in exactly the same way in the round, so you don't need to learn any new techniques here. And once you finish the first needle, you will get 1 new spare needle, and we'll use this to knit the stitches on the second needle. So rotate your work around, and now you have to adjust. See, this is the new working needle and it rests below those 2 needles, but we want it on top. So what I do is I bring it to the top like this, so the needle comfortably rests on top of these 2 needles, and from here you can continue knitting. Now it's very important that you keep a high tension on the first 2 stitches, and I say the first 2 stitches because if you just keep a high tension for the first stitch and then you knit the second stitch, what happens is that part of the yarn, it slides back. But if you tighten up after the second stitch, then there are 2 loops on the needle, and this little gap here is permanently closed and the yarn doesn't slide back again. But other than that, you can knit the second needle just the way you knit the first needle, and when you knit all stitches on that needle, you free this 1 needle again, so this is going to be your new needle, and you rotate around, and then you bring everything to the front again, so the working needle rests on top of those, and then you continue knitting, keeping a very high tension for the first 2 stitches. So really tuck on, you probably can't see this, but really tuck on very tightly so you don't create any gaps, also known as laddering. Again, this first round will feel very difficult, and it always is. Even for me, the first rounds are often very difficult because the stitches and everything isn't in the right form yet, and the stitches may slide off at any time. So don't worry if you feel again like you're juggling with raw eggs. That's quite normal. It gets better after the third round. So I'm knitting all stitches on the last needle. So I finished the very first round. I bring the needles to the front again. And now you can continue knitting as normal. And you just continue circling up. If you're knitting in a round, you're knitting actually in a circle. And I'm quickly going to show you our join here. And this is one continuous line here, one continuous line. And you won't, other than this little purl bump here, you really won't see where you joined. And I think this is the most invisible joining method. So continue knitting in this manner as long as your pattern requires. Every time you need to switch to a new needle, rotate your work around, bring the working needle to the front and knit the stitches, keeping a very high tension for the first 2 stitches. Now, a lot of tutorials will show you how to knit in the round on double pointed needles using 3 needles only. I personally don't like this because 4 needles grant you so much more mobility than just 3 needles, which are much more rigid, and it's hard to store these as well. You know, where do you put the 3rd needle? You can twist it, of course, but with 4 needles you can simply fold it and then wrap it around the tail and you have one secure bundle. So that's why I personally like 4 needles. Also, if you're knitting socks, you can actually slip through these 4 needles and try them on, which is really not possible if you're knitting with 3 needles only. That's why I usually prefer 4 needles, but try it out both. In the long run, I think 4 is better. For beginners, 3 might be a bit easier to handle, and I think that's why a lot of people favor them. Anyway, that's it. That's how you knit in the round on double pointed needles. I hope you were able to follow me along. Just keep on practicing and I'm sure you will master this technique in no time. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Comment with your questions or your problems. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss any new videos. Happy knitting!